been good enough. Even when, things are going pretty well.
It's a pretty common experience, actually.
Yeah, it's that kind of doubt that seems to follow a lot of us around.
For sure.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Perfect.
The author of this source material really wrestled with that feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah.
And get this, they found some answers in the philosophy of Alfred Adler.
Wow.
Yet specifically, his idea of existence as value, which sounds pretty interesting.
It is.
Yeah. So what really stood out to you about how the author kind of sets the scene here?
Well, the thing is, they had all the outward signs of success,
Right. The job, the income.
Exactly. Like all those things society tells us should equal happiness, right?
Yeah.
But still, there's this emptiness they just can't shake.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're living someone else's definition of a good life.
It's like checking all the boxes, but still feeling kind of empty inside, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And they even talked about wanting to, pile on more to-dos.
Oh, yeah.
Hoping that would silence that inner critic.
I've been there.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Trying to outrun those doubts with just being busy.
It's so tempting, right? But it never really works.
No, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're conditioned to look for validation outside of ourselves.
Right. Achievements, other people's approval, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But what's powerful here is what the author realizes,
Yeah.
which is echoed in Adler's work,
Okay.
is that this outward focus, it rarely brings lasting peace.
It's like building a house on sand, right?
Exactly.
So where does this whole existence as value thing fit in?
Right.
It sounds almost too simple,
Yeah.
Like just by existing, we're valuable.
I know.
How does that even work?
Yeah, it is a radical concept.
Yeah.
Especially, in a culture that's so achievement-oriented.
For sure.
And the author wrestled with it, too.
Right. They were so used to measuring their worth by what they did right.
Exactly. How much they helped others.
Yeah.
But Adler flips the script, you see.
Okay.
He says our worth isn't something we earn.
Right.
It's something we are...
Okay, hold on, though.
Yeah.
If we're already valuable just by existing,
Yeah.
does that mean we should just, kick back and relax?
Right.
Surely Adler wasn't saying we should be lazy?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
This is where things get really nuanced.
Okay.
Adler wasn't saying we should be passive.
Okay.
He actually emphasized the importance of meaningful action,
Uh-huh.
contributing to the world in ways that resonate with us.
Okay, got it.
But the key difference here is the motivation behind the action.
Right, so it's not about racking up achievements for appearances,
Exactly.
but about acting from a place of genuine purpose.
Exactly. And the author brings this to life with a personal example.
Oh, yeah?
Starting a podcast.
Okay.
At first, they were caught up in all the external metrics.
Downloads, listener numbers.
Yeah, all of that. But then they realized that wasn't truly fulfilling.
Right.
What brought them joy was the act of creation itself, the self-expression that podcasting allowed.
That's such a good example of how shifting your focus inward changes the whole experience. It's not about the applause.
Yeah.
It's about the music.
It is.
Okay, so how does all this connect back to Adler's ideas about feeling inferior, though?
Right.
Is he saying we shouldn't try to improve ourselves?
Not at all.
Okay.
What's fascinating is that Adler believed feeling inferior is a universal human experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we all start life dependent on others,
Okay.
which creates this natural sense of incompleteness.
Right.
And it's this feeling that often drives us to seek that external validation.
Like we're trying to fill that gap with trophies.
Exactly.
But it's never enough.
Well, yeah, because external validation is always fleeting.
That's
What gets you praised in one situation might be criticized in another.
for sure.
So how do we break free from this constant need for approval?
Right.
Well, the author highlights one of Adler's key ideas.
Okay.
Embracing imperfection.
That's so counterintuitive to everything we're told, right? Like striving for perfection is almost an obsession.
It is.
So how do we make peace with our imperfections and still feel like we're contributing?
Right. It's about understanding that our imperfections don't diminish our worth.
Okay.
In fact, Adler believed we find meaning within those imperfections,
Right.
in the act of striving and growing.
I like that.
He encourages us to focus on how we contribute to the world around us,
Yeah.
even in small, seemingly insignificant ways.
And this is where I think it gets really relevant for our listener.
Totally.
It's so easy to dismiss our own efforts because they don't feel big or impactful enough.
I know, right?
But this shift in perspective, recognizing the value of even small contributions.
It's huge.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah, the author uses a great example from their own life,
Oh, yeah.
their daily work.
Okay.
It might not be glamorous or making headlines,
Right.
but it contributes to the smooth running of their company,
Uh-huh.
which ultimately benefits the wider community.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the ripple effects of our actions.
Even when those ripples seem small.
Exactly.
This brings us to one of the big questions the author raises.
Yeah.
Does this inherent need for connection that Adler emphasizes
Yes.
still hold true in our hyperconnected world?
It's a great question.
With all the social media and virtual interactions,
I know.
are we actually more isolated than ever?
It's a real paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And it's a question that really resonated with the author.
Yeah.
Especially since they admit to struggling with avoidant tendencies.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes preferring deep conversations with AI over the messiness of human interaction.
It seems kind of backwards, right?
It does. So we were talking about whether all this connectivity is actually fulfilling that need for connection.
Right, because the author even mentions sometimes preferring deep conversations with AI.
Right, over dealing with, all the complexities of human interaction.
Exactly. So are we like rewiring ourselves somehow?
Well, that's the thing. The author proposes a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the fundamental need is still there,
Uh-huh.
but the ways we fulfill it are evolving.
So less about a complete overhaul and more like an adaptation.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me more about this evolution of connection.
Well, they suggest that, in the past, our sense of belonging often came from those close-knit relationships.
Right, within our families or communities.
Yeah, but now with these vast networks and online communities,
Right.
we're exposed to so many different connection styles.
Like a whole buffet of connections.
It is. Maybe we're seeking, fewer but more meaningful interactions.
Right, finding our people.
Exactly. Or finding niche communities online.
Or even, connecting through AI for certain needs.
It's a possibility.
It's like we're moving from connection by default.
Right.
Based on like proximity or family ties.
Yeah.
To a more intentional approach.
Exactly. We're curating our connections.
Based on shared values or interests.
Exactly. Or even just a sense of understanding.
Yeah.
And the author doesn't see this shift as inherently negative. It's simply a reflection of how our social landscape is changing.
So it becomes less about fitting into some predefined mold of what connection should look like.
Right.
And more about figuring out what truly nourishes us as individuals.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And this brings us back to the author's personal experience.
Okay.
They describe themselves as having avoidant tendencies,
Uh-huh.
feeling more at ease with logic and analysis
Right.
than navigating, the messiness of emotions.
Okay.
This explains their affinity for those AI conversations.
It's like AI offers that intellectual stimulation.
Yes.
Without the potential for drama or emotional baggage.
Exactly.
That can sometimes come with human relationships.
It can.
So does this mean that AI could actually replace human connection, though?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They don't present it as a replacement,
Okay.
but rather as a tool for self-reflection and exploration.
Okay.
It's almost like a stepping stone.
Okay.
You can process thoughts and feelings in a safe, non-judgmental space, which might then make you more capable of healthy human connection.
Also, in either situation.
Right.
But about recognizing the potential benefits of both.
Yes, finding that balance that works for you.
I like that.
And this leads the author to a really important point.
Okay.
The real challenge isn't necessarily the evolution of connection itself,
Uh-huh.
but our ability to adapt and evolve alongside it.
Okay.
We need to re-examine our assumptions about connection,
Yeah.
be open to new possibilities,
Right.
and figure out how to connect authentically in a world that's constantly changing.
It's like a call to action.
It is.
Don't just passively accept, whatever new tech or social trend comes along,
Right.
but actively shape how you want to connect in this evolving landscape.
Exactly.
Now, the author also dives into a pretty tricky question.
Oh, yeah.
If self-worth comes from contributing to others,
Uh-huh.
doesn't that still rely on external feedback?
Right.
It seems like we're trying to break free from external validation, but also kind of need it to confirm that our actions matter.
Yeah. How do we make sense of that?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It is. It's a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
And it highlights a potential trap.
Okay.
The author points out that if we're always looking for that external approval for our actions,
Uh-huh.
our self-worth becomes incredibly fragile.
Right.
What happens if our efforts go unnoticed?
Right.
Or worse, if we get negative feedback?
Yeah, does that suddenly invalidate everything?
Exactly.
It's like we're on this seesaw,
Yeah.
constantly trying to balance internal motivation with external validation.
Right.
So how do we get off that ride and find a more stable sense of self-worth?
Well, the author offers a really insightful solution.
Okay.
They suggest that true fulfillment comes from a combination of both
Okay.
internal drive and external feedback.
Okay.
It's about acting from genuine meaning and purpose, finding satisfaction in the act of contributing itself,
Okay.
while also being open to feedback that can help us, refine our approach.
So it's not about ignoring feedback altogether,
Right.
but understanding its place in the bigger picture.
Exactly. Think of it as a feedback loop.
Oh.
The internal drive is what gets you moving,
Uh-huh.
while the external feedback helps you course correct
Yeah.
and see the impact of your actions more clearly.
Okay. I'm liking where this is going.
Good.
Does the author have any analogies to kind of illustrate this?
They do.
Oh.
They compare it to a closed loop key.
Okay.
So the internal drive is the key itself,
Uh-huh.
and the external feedback is the lock screw.
Okay.
And our sense of value is most fully realized when the two align.
I love
That's
that.
a good one.
It really captures that interplay between those two forces.
It does.
But how do we know if our internal drive is actually aligned with what the world needs?
Right.
Are we just assuming that our contributions are valuable?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
And that's what the author dives into next.
Okay.
It's about ensuring our contributions aren't just self-serving, but genuinely beneficial to others.
Okay.
And I think we're going to need part 3 to unpack that fully.
Let's do it. So we're back and ready to tackle that final question.
Yeah, how do we make sure our contributions are actually valuable?
Right. Not just driven by our ego or that desire for recognition.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is, because a lot of us want to make a difference.
For sure.
But also, we got to be honest with ourselves about our motivations.
We do.
So how do we navigate that?
Well, the author starts by reminding us of one of Adler's core beliefs.
Okay.
We're not meant to be perfect.
Right.
It's actually in those imperfections, in the striving and growing,
Yeah.
that we actually find meaning.
Okay.
So step 1 is letting go of that need for everything to be perfect.
Easier said than done sometimes,
It can be.
especially with social media,
Yeah.
constantly shoving those images of perfection in our faces.
Right.
So how do we actually shift our mindset away from
But
that?
the author suggests a few things. One is to shift our focus
Okay.
from outcomes to the process itself.
Okay, so instead of fixating on achieving some arbitrary standard of success,
Exactly.
we should be asking ourselves, am I moving myself and the world forward?
Yeah, find joy in the act of creating, contributing, connecting.
Regardless of the external results.
Exactly. It's like you said before.
Yeah.
It's not about the applause.
It's about the music.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
Another practice the author suggests is building a small network for quality feedback.
Okay, so instead of seeking validation from the masses,
Right.
focus on a few trusted people
Exactly.
who share your values.
Yeah, and can offer honest, constructive feedback.
It's like having your own personal board of advisors.
It is.
People you trust to help you stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great image.
But what about when you're feeling lost or
Yeah.
uncertain?
Right, like how do you tap into that internal compass when you don't even know which way to go?
Well, that's where self-reflection comes in. The author really emphasizes taking time to understand yourself deeply.
Through like journaling or meditation.
Yeah, things like that. Therapy.
Yeah.
Even those conversations with AI we talked about earlier. It's
Right.
about uncovering your values,
Uh-huh.
your motivations, your unique strengths.
So it's about creating space for introspection.
Exactly.
Really listening to that inner voice that guides us.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
And here's where the author's journey comes full circle.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how they started feeling lost and uncertain?
Despite having all the external signs of success.
Exactly.
Well-
But through exploring this idea of existence as value,
Mm-hmm.
embracing imperfection,
Right.
cultivating those meaningful connections,
Yeah.
they've actually found a sense of self-acceptance
Wow.
and inner peace.
It's inspiring, right?
It is.
They've built that solid ground within themselves.
Yeah.
That unshakable sense of worth that doesn't crumble when things get tough.
Exactly. And it all started with that one simple question.
How do I know I have value?
Yeah, and that's a question we can all keep asking ourselves.
For sure.
Because this is an ongoing process.
It is.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of self-acceptance,
Right.
but about continually striving to live in alignment with our values
Mm-hmm.
and contributing in ways that feel meaningful to us.
This whole deep dive has been amazing.
It has.
We've covered so much.
We have.
Self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
the changing nature of connection, that balance between internal drive and external feedback.
Oh, so much.
But as with all good deep dives,
Yeah.
We're left with some lingering questions,
Some food for thought. Good.
some things to ponder.
Exactly.
And the author leaves us with a final thought-provoking question.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
If my worth isn't dependent on external approval, what do other people truly mean to me?
Wow, that is a powerful question.
It is. It really makes you think about the nature of relationships
Sure.
and the value they bring to our lives.
It does.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with a simple invitation. What's one small, meaningful action you can take today,
Yeah,
regardless of recognition, to move yourself and the world forward?
I love that.
Maybe it's reaching out to a friend,
Yeah.
pursuing a creative project, or simply taking a few moments for self-reflection.
Those are great ideas.
Remember, your worth is inherent,
Yes,
and your contributions matter.
they do.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.